Hey guys, Miles here once again, and welcome back to another episode of Rescuing Your Old OCs. I had a ton of fun during the first episode as I redesigned an old pony OC, but now I'm moving on to something that I'm sure is going to shock you guys. But you won't really know what it is unless you watch till the end of the project. Hint, hint. Alright guys, enough of me being cringy, let's get this project underway. Let me be the first to introduce you to Lucky Bear. Now, if you're seeing this design, you're like instantly thrown back to that time when you were probably much younger and you just discovered FNAF, then you wouldn't be alone. In fact, after seeing the original design, I had a lot of nostalgic vibes going on. It is worth noting that once upon a time, when I was much younger and I had just popped into the FNAF fandom, I did create a few animatronic OCs of my very own. You can probably tell by my tone of voice that did not necessarily go well, and most of them really never saw the light of day. What I did end up doing, however, was turning the main 6 into animatronics themselves. If you are interested in that cringe fest, you can hop on over to my old main channel and see projects like this, or this, or this, or even this. Though I'd advise you to stay away from the old ones. That's just too much cringe to put in one video or to put on one channel. All of that aside, I was ready for my shot at redemption, and Lucky Bear was my lucky chance. So once I was done ruminating in nostalgia, I decided to start Lucky Bear's design process. So there are a lot of things I really actually like about this initial design, but one of the things that I wanted to change right off the bat was I wanted to take her from a slightly more mature character and make her just a little bit younger and a little bit more cutesy. Now you might be asking why I made this design choice, and that's mainly because I hold the belief that things that are cute, that tend to petrify or terrify people in the end, create a totally uncanny experience, which I absolutely adore. So I made sure to give her a cute little round head, big, endearing, adorable eyes, and a body to match the two. It's not very often that I draw characters that are less mature than, say, September or Sayonara, especially females. But I kind of took inspiration from Rosacea and decided to carry over a few design similarities. Normally I would use black inside my eyes for the iris to kind of make the other colors pop, but with Lucky Bear's design I decided to go with softer effect by just using varying degrees of the color of her original eyes. In the end, I really like how it turned out, and it was a lot of fun to play with. Playing up the cute yet dangerous effect, I decided to give her a huge smile that in turn displays her very sharp teeth, clearly giving the idea to viewers that she's totally excited to meet you, but she might just chew on you later. You know, for fun. Next, it was time to tackle those animatronic joints, and believe me, I had to go back to the drawing board multiple times and look at a bunch of different references to get it right. It goes against everything inside me as an artist to take my anatomy and then slice it up into a bunch of different segments. So believe me, I turned around, I cried a little, and then I got back to work. Once I was done doing that, I filled the space with a few gears, and I'm not really sure what you'd call the other pieces, but they look pretty cool. Then I finally added some screws around areas that just seemed like they could use some, and sat back, looked at the design, and thought, okay, I can live with this. Then to finish things up, I added a voice box, which is going to be directly above where I plan to put her bow tie later on. Then it was officially time to tackle that hair. It is no secret that a lot of my characters have really long hair and that I enjoy drawing long hair, even though it takes a lot of time and a lot of detail. I just think it looks really cool, but thankfully Lucky Bear tossed me a bone because she has short hair that I could play around with, but I didn't have to spend too much time on. This cute little bob she has going with a few little pieces sticking out at the top is totally adorable, and I pretty much stuck to the original design when it came to fleshing this out. After I had my line art down, the only major thing that I ended up changing was the color of the hair. Because I'd already created lighter color eyes, and I knew I'd be playing with a lot of other lighter tones throughout the design, I decided to darken the hair accordingly, making it more of a focal point than it was before. Yes, again, I do love my hair, so it's gotta have a little bit of a spotlight. Once that was more or less complete, I added those cute little ears. And let me tell you, it's been a long time since I've drawn ears like this, so I wasn't necessarily entirely happy with the way they turned out, but I think that they work. Then it was finally time to work on the one part of the project that always gives me trouble without a doubt every single time. If you're having trouble guessing, or you're new to this channel, or you haven't seen my work before, I mainly draw animals and have just started cracking into doing more humans, at least on my channel. Hands and I do not have a great relationship. And by saying that we don't have a great relationship, we could pretty much say I don't have a relationship with them at all. Yeah, it's that bad. I have to heavily reference whenever I'm drawing hands because we just do not see eye to eye. Honestly though, with that being said, these hands didn't really give me that hard of a time. Why, you may be asking? Well, I could literally draw them, go over them, flesh out the line art, and then go to heck with it and chop them all up into segments. So even if they looked like oversized hot dogs, I could turn them into nice little hot dog slices. I don't know what you would necessarily call that, but either way it worked and I didn't mess with it any longer than I had to. Next, I decided to head back up to my hair and go ahead and give it more detail. Highlights, lowlights, a little bit of shading, you know, the whole 9 yards. And when I was finished with that, I knew it was finally time to tackle clothing. Now, the original design was definitely nostalgic, and it reminded me of a lot of the other OC designs that I'd seen at the time when the FNAF fandom was just gaining its wings. So my idea was to create a more cutesy design, but one that left room for you to see her animatronic parts, her gears, her screws, and all of that clearly on display. Because what's worse than going to all the trouble of creating those only to hide them under clothing? Not saying that the original design was wrong. In fact, I actually liked how it came out. But with this design, I wanted to kind of go over the top and show off all of the things that I had taken time to design. My first idea for clothing was definitely more cutesy than I think I was comfortable with, and it was a bit more revealing than I thought was probably necessary. So I looked at it, I decided what I did and didn't like, and then I went back to the drawing board and came up with a second design. Instead of using a halter-like top with a lot of bows everywhere, I simplified things and went with a vest instead. It's slightly more formal, but it definitely echoes the original design, and that's something that I wanted to keep in there. When I finally had that down, I went back in and worked on some details, like her bow tie and her top hat. The original design had the top hat kind of placed behind her hair, but when I did that, I realized that it was mostly hidden, and just like the animatronic parts, I wanted it to sort of be on display. I realized about halfway through that it didn't really sit on her head the way I wanted it to when I brought it from behind her head onto the top of her head, so I tried it at a few different angles and then finally settled on just putting it behind her ear and finishing up. Next, I worked on the final shading for her outfit and other accessories, and then knew it was time to move on to some of the finishing touches. I made a few small changes here and there, but once I was happy with the overall design, I knew it was time to create a background. Well, I say create, but you know what? I wanted that authentic feel, so I went with work from an artist who had already created a really cool background that I could kind of expound on. So I just added some tables, party favors, and balloons, and my finished piece was done. I ended up darkening the image a little bit and adding other layers to sort of deepen the design. Then, after all that I had been through, I was finally finished. I really don't like to take somebody's design and change everything about it, so I make changes where I feel they're needed. But I always try to pay respect to the original by keeping what I can, even if they're just little details here and there. Thankfully with this OC, that wasn't necessarily hard to do, and I'm pretty darn happy with how things turned out. So, what do you think? Has this cute animatronic won your heart yet? Oh, maybe not? Here, let me set the scene. How about now? Thanks guys for joining me once again for one of my redesign videos. If you have an old OC that is looking for a makeover, then you've come to the right place. Drop me a comment down below and let me know if you're interested in being featured in the next episode. Alright guys, I love you all, this is Miles signing off, and stay awesome. I noticed after the project that this screw seems to be missing, but I'm pretty sure it was there. It was just covered up by the clothing. I looked at it and I'm like, oh no, where did the screw go? Stop screwing with me, Lucky Bear. Sometimes I sit here and I look at what I've drawn and I'm like, oh my gosh, this animatronic is staring into my soul, and I'm letting it. And I can't stop it because I made it. I created this monster. Seriously, when you create an animatronic, it's like a cup of cute, a cup of creepy, a cup of might be your friend, and a cup of might kill you in the end. What in the world? She's like, I love you, and I'll love you always, even after you die. Okay, I'm seriously done now. Bye!